like to see full plates. How's everyone doing? Better? Better now? Excellent. So by show of hands, how many of us have done CPR before? Either on a person, training, through reading and exercises, and so on. And so one of the biggest pushes that we're trying to do right now is teach hands-only CPR. Right? The most important thing you can do is that hands-only CPR, because a lot of the times when somebody is going to go down and they have a cardiac arrest, 95% of the time it's going to be outside of their home, and it's going to be outside with someone around them, right? And that's usually going to be a stranger. It's going to be usually you're out in the parking lot, you might be shopping, you might be out doing yard work, right? And so these are all valuable and important tools that we need to learn and to be able to implement. Does anyone feel comfortable doing CPR? All right, by the end of today, everyone's going to have their hands up, right? And so it becomes really easy when we talk about doing compressions, because now with hands-only CPR, there's only two things you need to do, right? And those two things, you're going to call 911, and then you're going to push hard and fast. And so for those of us that have taken CPR before, you'll notice that they've taken out a few things, right? They've made it really easy and really redundant for you to be able to do compressions. It's to allow everybody the comfortability and the confidence to be able to do compressions, right? And so the number one thing that you have to do is you have to call 911, right? And so before we start any of this, right, we're gonna come up to our patient, we're gonna come up to our person that's down, and we're gonna notice them, right? From when we are walking out, from when we walk up to the person, we're gonna be able to see, hey, is this person looking at me when I'm walking up? Are they breathing, right? Do they look like they fell down from a trauma incident? Did it look like they fell from a ladder? Did they have any tools around them? Did they have any visible signs of blood? Was this out on a busy intersection? Was this in a parking lot, right? These are all things that we're trying to put together. We're gonna be detectives for this moment of time, right? And so essentially all we're doing is we're just trying to figure out what happened to this patient. Why is this person down, and is there anything out of my existing circumstances that I can't fix, that I need to call 911? Right? But today, we're gonna get clear of all that. This person is just gonna be down. It's cardiac arrest. They were out mowing their lawn, and then you see them out on the grass, right? So that's the story that we're gonna paint today. And so essentially, all you're doing is you're gonna do a tap and shout, right? So when you walk up to the person, you do a tap and shout. You're gonna tap on the clavicle. You're gonna tap a few times. Hey, are you okay? Right? You're gonna hear for and listen to see if they're looking at you, if they have any response. If they don't have any facial response, they're not grimacing, they're not making a sudden jerk motion, or they're not really doing much, then all you need to do next is you have to check if they're breathing, right? So when you check for their breathing, you're gonna do what's called a head tilt chin lift, and then you're gonna look, listen, and feel. So a head tilt chin lift is easiest described as if you take your palm, you put it on the flat part of your forehead, you lift your forehead up, and then you take 2 fingers, and then you push your chin all the way up, right? And so normally when you put this on somebody, they're able to now keep this in that open airway position, right? And so that's all we're doing for hands-only CPR. So you're gonna take your palm, you're gonna put it on this person's forehead, take 2 fingers, lift up, and then you're gonna do what's called the look, listen, and feel. You're gonna look for a chest rise, you're gonna listen and feel for any breaths, right? And so this is what it's gonna look like. You're gonna do that for about 10 seconds. And if you can't feel for a breath, you can't see them breathing, all you're gonna do is you're gonna call 911, and then you're gonna push hard and fast. Technically, you can do all of this by just taking out your phone, dialing 911, and then putting your phone down next to them, and then putting your speakerphone on, right? That's gonna solve 95% of your problem, especially if you're alone. If you have someone with you, perfect. You can have the other person do CPR, right? And then you can be the one to call 911, but you're able to do this by yourself as well. So at this point, we've determined that this person is unconscious, right? They're not breathing, and they need CPR, right? Unconscious. Did y'all notice that I forgot to do something? Right? So you have to check for a pulse. Does everyone know how to check for a carotid pulse? So you take 2 fingers, you can angle it down to your jaw, right here, and then you push all the way down here, right? And so this little notch right here, you would probably wiggle it around a centimeter or 2, left and right. Don't press both at the same time, right? Because then you can pass out. But you should be able to feel for a pulse. Don't ever use your thumb, because if you actually use your thumb, you can actually feel for you can feel your own pulse. And sometimes we can mistake our own pulse for somebody else's, and then that becomes another issue, right? So once we determine that there's no pulse, they're not breathing, right, and then they're unconscious, call 911, and then what you do is you push hard and fast, right? So typically you would push in the middle of the chest, in the center, right? But all you have to do is they tell you to keep your arms straight. you can interlock your fingers. I see everyone has a pen, right? So they teach you to interlock your fingers, and then you keep your elbows straight and bent, and you can push hard and fast. What I want everyone to do now is I want everyone to take their pen, and I want you all to take your pen and then put it in between your fingertips. Right above your middle knuckle. Right above your middle knuckle, right here. So now what I want everyone to do is I want you to press your fingers together as hard as you can. With your other finger.
Oh.
With your other hand. With your other hand. Right?
Oh.
Does that hurt?
Yes.
Right? That hurts, right? So if you do that for an extended amount of time, especially if you're doing compressions, right? We typically do compressions for a maximum of about 40 minutes, right? Minimum is whenever we get pulses back or whenever that person wakes up and walks out, right? And so typically when we have that same feeling, we're interlocking our fingers, right? When we interlock our fingers, that puts pressure onto our fingertips. We start to lose circulation. Our fingers start to swell. They start to get numbness and tingling. And then a lot of times we have to stop. We have to shake it off, and then we have to continue, right? The most important thing about compressions in CPR is the time on the chest or the time away from the chest. We need to always constantly be pumping the heart because we need to keep oxygenated blood flowing at all times. We need to keep that person warm, and we also need to constantly pump their blood so that they can recirculate all of the entire red blood cells that they have throughout their entire body, right? And we're doing that mechanically for them, which is why CPR plays into a big part. So with that being said, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can interlock your fingers if you want. You can do one of these. You can offset your hands. You can use one palm, and then you can put your other hand on here, on the other palm. It just depends on what you're comfortable with, right? Do one of these. So essentially all you're doing is finding the middle of the chest. You're going to find the limb out, and then you're going to push hard and fast, right? So they tell you to push at a rate of 100 to 120 beats per minute, right? All that is, it's just 1 second, right? So you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's really simple. You can also play Another One Bites the Dust, right? You can play Staying Alive, right? Those are some popular ones. So with that being said, right, you just find your landmark, and then you can push hard and fast. You notice how I am keeping my elbows straight and my arms straight. I'm directly hovering right over this person. I am not, my knees are not far away because this would put more pressure. This would end up hurting my back. I am right against the person's chest, right? Pushing right directly over them.
And you should do this before you call 911?
You do this after you call 911. So after you call 911, you put it on the floor on speaker. You're then able to push hard and fast. You do compressions, right? So they tell you 100 to 120 beats per minute. It's going to feel a little weird at first. So what I want everyone to do is when you're practicing, I want you to push as hard as you can because there's a difference, right? The whole process is, yes, there is a chance and there is a probability that you are going to break the rib cage, right? The whole point of your rib cage is to protect your vital organs, right? So it's doing its job. But at that point, when you need to compress the heart manually, mechanically by yourself, you might break a rib cage, right? Every time I've ever done compressions, every time I've ever done CPR, I've broken rib cages. But also that person's been able to go to the hospital, we've been able to get care for them, and then they're able to get out probably a couple days after, right? So these are all normal things that is going to happen. And so with that being said, right, when you are practicing, what I want everyone to do is push as hard as you can into the floor, into the ground. I want you to feel like you're almost breaking the floor, right? I want you to push as hard as you can. Well, don't push too hard because I don't want your wrist hurting, right? But you're going to push so hard that I want you to feel exactly what that pressure is, right? And so all of this is going to change depending on body type, right? Whether this person is a lot taller, is a lot shorter, is a lot bigger, or they're a lot smaller, right? And so body composition plays into a big factor. But I just want you to at least get into the motion of seeing how it feels, right? And seeing what it's supposed to feel like. And then when you do that, right, we'll go around and then we'll dial it back for you, right? It's going to be a little finicky. We're going to dial it back for you until you get that perfect precision, until you get that perfect placement, so that you know roughly around what it's supposed to feel like doing compressions, right? So this is just what it's supposed to look like. And then I could do this pretty effortlessly for a long time. Any questions?
You're not as old as us.
I feel like it, right? So I'm just about 18 and you're all just about 24, right? So yes.
How does someone's weight, like if they're overweight, how does that impact CPR?
Great question, right? So typically if someone's gonna be overweight, and this is like extreme obesity, right? We're talking over 500 pounds. It doesn't really change the anatomy for CPR.
Okay.
We're just gonna push harder and faster. I'm probably gonna get more tired, but then it's now my job as a paramedic to be able to tell myself, hey, I'm not doing the best compressions that I can, and I need to swap out, right? And so that's the best thing you can do is if you notice that someone's getting tired, and you let someone else go in there, and then they'll switch off every 2 minutes, right? It changes for choking, that's it. It doesn't change for compressions. So for choking, technically, you're supposed to find the belly button, right, the umbilicus, and then you're supposed to push up and push in and up. But if you're overweight or if you're pregnant, then you would do it right underneath the chest. So it'd just be like compressions, but then now you would put them over the chest instead of under the stomach. So that's the only difference.
And do you take into account whether it's a child that's smaller?
Yeah, so for children, you would just use one heel of the hand instead of 2. One heel, and then if it's an infant, you would use 2 fingers. So, but we don't do hands-only CPR for children or for adults, or sorry, for children and infants, only because in children and infants, when there's a cardiac arrest issue, when somebody goes into cardiac arrest and the heart stops pumping, it's 90% of the time it's a respiratory issue. And so it has nothing to do with their heart not working, it has something to do with them with a breathing problem. So whether they're sick, whether they have a respiratory illness, or they're in respiratory distress, something that's affecting their lungs, something that's affecting them to be able to breathe is what's causing them to go into what's called respiratory arrest. So, you have a question?
I have a question. If you break the rib cage, can the lungs can get perforated or not?
There's always a chance that if you break a rib cage, that it could puncture your heart, puncture a lung. The chances of that happening, I won't say it's very slim, right? But I won't say it's never going to happen. Out of the 10 years that I've been here, and out of the many hundreds of people that I've done CPR on, I have not yet broken or perforated a lung or a heart. And so I can't tell you the exact number for it, but it varies, depending on the person and the extent of the injury. Any other questions?
So if your kid goes into respiratory arrest, do you still do CPR?
You still do CPR, you still do the checks. It's just going away from hands-only CPR, you would still tap and shout, you would still check the pulse, still check the respirations, and then you would still call 911. Everything's the same, it just changes whether or not. Then we actually go into CPR protocol, but that's not what we're doing today.
As an old-fashioned CPR with breathing.
Correct, with breathing, yes. So, any other questions? Please keep them coming. If y'all want to practice, we have dummies, including myself, around the room, and we'll be able to come monitor and help you out. Yes?
I missed that last question, so one of my questions would be, if it's someone you know,
Okay.
and you're comfortable doing the mouth to mouth,
Sure.
would that still be preferable over hands-free, or is it not the same?
Excellent question, right? So if you have a loved one or if you have a family member that goes down and you're trying to do compressions on them, right? Do you still do mouth to mouth? By a show of hands, how many of us feel like we would still do mouth to mouth? We would still give them breaths.
Be comfortable with it.
You'd be comfortable doing it, right? So, excellent. Now let me ask you all a question. Is that when we're breathing in about what, 21% oxygen? We're breathing in oxygen, right? And so now when we're dispelling that, once our body uses up the oxygen, we dispel out carbon dioxide, right? Does our body take in carbon dioxide? No, right? And so if we're breathing in carbon dioxide, does that really do much for our loved one? Does that really do much for that person that we're trying to save? Not really, right? So that is why when we give breaths, we do it through a bag valve mask. We do it with 100% oxygen so that they're able to now take that oxygen, replenish it with their lungs, through their alveoli, through their sacs, and then be able to utilize that oxygen and then now nutrient their entire body, right? So that's exactly what that is. I'm not saying that it's not something we never do anymore, right? Because I think out of instinct, I would still do the same thing with my loved one, with my family member. But now with the science behind everything, there's really no point in doing mouth to mouth anymore, right? You need to hook up to 100% oxygen. You need to have an O2 tank. You need to be able to do all these things so that you're able to do the best that you can for your loved one and for that person that you care about. Right? Does that make sense?
Good information.
That's a great question.
Great question. Barring a natural event, if it's just, an isolated incident, mentally, like how long should, it's a response time, like mentally, how long should we assume it's gonna take before paramedics arrive?
So that depends on, well, that depends. That depends.
Well, let's say we're in the neighborhood, right?
So that depends on the situation, right? There's a fire station right down the hill, right? Right?
Yeah.
So typically, response time would be anywhere from so receipt of the alarm to when we get out, right? Typically, it's going to be about, we'll just go on the higher end, right? It's going to be about 30 seconds to a minute from when we receive the call to when we get into our ambulance or our apparatus and we head out the fire station, right? Anywhere between 1 minute to 3 minutes, we should be able to get on scene, right? But in the city of Los Angeles, there are things called traffic. There are things called people putting on their flashers and then double parking on the side, and then now you can't really move, right? Especially if it's a big apparatus. And so there are those factors that come into play with traffic. But anywhere from safely, I would say around anywhere from 1 to at most 5 minutes. That's like on the extreme end. I don't think it's ever going to take us more than 5 minutes to get there. It just depends on the day, right? But for about the extent of time, it's not going to take too long. Especially when there's a fire station down the street. It gets tricky now when they're out on a call and then you have neighboring fire stations that need to come in and then take those calls. But that's going to be dependent on the time of day, dependent on whether there is a natural disaster, whether there's a big emergency. So it's hard to. Yes.
If there's a defibrillator around, and you don't know how to use it, is it quicker to do that, or should we just try and figure out that?
Good question. Has anyone seen what a defibrillator looks like before? Does anyone know how to use it?
I know it's straightforward.
It's very straightforward. It's so straightforward, in fact, that I need to ask you all, what is the first step of using an automated external defibrillator?
Open it.
You turn it on, right? And so my whole thing is that if you can read, if you can listen and follow, it's harder for us men, right? But if you can read and you can follow directions, you can cook, you can change your tire, you can change your oil, you can use an automated external defibrillator, right? And so do we have any in this community?
We've got a lot of them.
Excellent, right? So just for a little review, they're usually out located in, you can find them in public thoroughfares, you can find them in gyms, railroads, airports, anywhere you can find lots of traffic, right? Even at malls. And so essentially, it's going to be like a fire extinguisher, right? It's going to be in a locked box. It's going to say AED with a heart and a little lightning symbol on it, right? So essentially, all you would do is, and your question was whether or not you would do the defibrillator first or hands-on CPR, right? You never. Let's just put it this way. It gets tricky, right? Because now it's whether or not this person fell in front of you and you witnessed it and you saw them go down, or if you found them and they were maybe you didn't know what they were doing prior and you don't know how long they've been down for, right? So that plays into a factor, right? And so essentially all you would do is you would just turn this on.
You said it's a lock case, so how are you going to get into a lock case?
It's glass, you can break the glass.
You break the glass.
Yeah. So all you would do is you turn it on, right? And so earlier when I said if you can turn it on, you can follow directions, you can use an AED, right? So as soon as you turn it on,
adult patient. If the patient is a child, press the child button.
and they usually have different pads for children, right?
Remove clothing from the patient.
So the first thing you would do is you turn it on, you would then remove the clothes from the patient, and then you would take these pads, and it's going to look something like this, but it's going to have these pads, right? It's going to be a lot bigger when you open them up. And then you would just look at the picture, right? This picture tells you that you're going to put it on the person's right chest, and then you're going to put one underneath their left chest, underneath their arm, right? So all you're doing is you're just going to follow directions.
Press pads firmly on skin.
It's a sticky pad.
Press pads firmly on skin. Do not touch the patient. Analyzing heart rhythm.
So once this is all done, it's going to analyze the heart rhythm. It's going to make sure that it's not finding any electrical activity, right? The whole point of you defibrillating the heart is because there's no electrical activity.
Everyone
So this is going to find that electrical activity. If it doesn't find one, it's going to be able to shock you, right? So you're going to hear that. You're going to hear it, and then you're going to see it. You're going to see that on every defibrillator, this lightning symbol, right, is going to flash. Whether it's orange, it's green, it's most likely going to be red or orange. It's going to start flashing. All you would do is, I'm clear, you're clear, we're all clear. Make sure no one's touching the patient, because if someone touches it, they're going to be part of the problem, right?
heart rhythm.
You would press the shock button. It would say shock delivered, and then you would go straight into CPR.
Analyzing heart rhythm.
Any questions?
So
So the
Wait, I'm sorry, when do you shock the person?
you shock if it determines that it needs to be shocked, right? So it'll tell you automatically. It's automated. It's automatically going to detect that, right?
Okay,
So then you're asking whether or not you do CPR first or you do the AED first.
yeah.
100% of the time, I would do CPR first because I want to get that heart pumping. I want to get that person warmed up, right? I want to make sure there's plenty of residual leftover red blood cells circulating that entire body, that entire heart, before I defibrillate, right? As a first responder, if it's a witness cardiac arrest, meaning somebody goes down right in front of me, they just went down. I'm going to be able to put that defibrillator on first. I'm going to shock them first, and then I'm going to do compressions, right? Because the idea behind that is they just went down. They're going to be at their warmest, right? They're going to be at their most oxygenated. All of their vital organs are going to be well oxygenated. They're going to be full of red blood cells, right? So at that point, I can just go ahead and put that defibrillator on. It's going to be able to disperse the electrical activity, and it's going to have the highest chance for this machine to restart that heart.
How about the guy's AFib, and so he's passed out or whatever, and the heart has activity,
Right.
but it's not beating regularly.
So typically, that's not a shockable rhythm, right? And I can go into hours and hours on this. I will send Randy a list of shockable rhythms if that's something you like. But for most cases, you're going to find that person to be a little bit disoriented. You might be lethargic. They're not might be acting right? But if they are not pulseless, right? They don't have a pulse. They're not breathing, and they're not unconscious. You can't even do compressions anyways, right? So if you're going to shock somebody, you have to make sure those three things exist. And then it goes into another factor. If you use this automated external defibrillator, it will literally tell you if it's a shockable rhythm, right? It's just going to do that for you automatically. And so if it's specific things like AFib or like supraventricular tachycardia, where your heart starts beating really fast, right? We can't really shock those rhythms. We can do something else to it, but we can't use the automated external defibrillator to restart that heart.
So we train everybody who works on our properties. So we have multiple, every house and Classics and everywhere has one of these. And if you're interested, one, for training, let us know. And the next time we have a training here, we'd be happy to include you. It's usually a group about this size. And secondly, we can get discounts on these things. They're not inexpensive, but it makes you feel a lot more confident knowing that not just for us, but if we have a guest that we know is, and they look like this, and it says, call 911, right? And we typically do that one. We have not been doing it in the last couple of years, but we're just getting started.
We're doing it.
And we're doing it.
Excellent.
But we typically do it annually.
How much do they run? You said.
They're about $1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it says do not shock, it's just going to tell you to go on compressions, right? And so essentially, I'm going to play this again, and then I won't talk so that y'all can hear the prompts, right?
Adult patient. If the patient is a child, press the child button. Remove clothing from the patient's chest. Remove packet and apply pads on the patient's bare skin. Press pads firmly on skin. Press pads firmly on skin. Do not touch the patient. Analyzing heart rhythm. Do not touch the patient. Analyzing heart rhythm. Shock advised. Do not touch the patient. Everyone clear. Press the flashing shock button.
Clear, we're all clear.
Press the shock. Shock delivered. Begin
And
CPR.
you just go straight into compressions. And then a lot of the AEDs now, they have an internal metronome, and so it's going to play that out for you. So if you don't remember or you don't remember the count, you just have to follow along with the metronome.
Would you then not remove those pads? Leave on?
You can leave these pads on, and then we leave them on until we get to the hospital, and then they'll just disconnect our fitting and then put it into their own. But it's going to be the same pads, and you would just leave this on. You can do compressions over these, no problem. The only problem now we get into is if someone is really wet, if they just got out of the pool, they just took a shower, or if they're in the sauna and they're really hot, their skin's it's all wet, right? Or if they have a really hairy chest. And so a lot of the AEDs come with no shaving cream, but it comes with a razor, disposable razor. We all know how well those work, right? And so if you're able to, if you have more than one of these pads, you can put this on someone, and then you can use that as like a wax paper, right? You can put this on and then rip it off, and so that works too. And then if they are submerged in water, whether they are in the pool, the sauna, or they just got out of the shower, you would take a towel and just wipe off their chest once, twice, 3 times, do it again, and then do it again, right? And then at that point, once you put the patches on, it should be able to stick. If it doesn't stick, right, you can't just reuse it. You have to actually remove it, and then you have to put on another one, because the adhesiveness is what is actually going to conduct the electricity, because it is able to search through with the AED. Any other questions?
For $1,000, how many shots do you get?
This is a trainer, so a couple hundred.
A couple hundred?
Yeah, with
How
the,
many do you get, you know?
The batteries,
I think you should.
the battery is like a 5-year life, and it'll tell you that little window on there is to check the battery.
That's right, and we have replaced the batteries, that's another thing.
So it'll tell you when the battery is going out. But I believe it's a 5-year life, that's without being used.
Oh.
And I'm not sure the exact number if you use it. But it's gonna analyze every 2 minutes. So to answer your question,
He just did two.
what's that, he answered it?
Well, he did twice. You should push the button.
Yeah, so you said, should you continue, right? So you can continue with the pads on, because it's gonna wanna check again. So every 2 minutes, so you see that he's in shape, and some of us may not be in as good a shape, and we might be more tired. Switching out is big. Hopefully you get help there by then, and switch out. So what we'll do is every 2 minutes when it analyzes, okay, it says it's gonna analyze, so I'm out, and someone else is in, and they take over for 2 minutes, well, whether it's shot or not. For me or for him?
Well, no, what I was just going to say is an observation. One of the things that someone said was when there's a large group of people, everyone thinks that someone else is taking care of it. So
That's good.
as you start to walk up, you just say, call 911, call 911. So everybody kind of goes, shit. And if you can, point at someone. So it's just like.
Have you taken one of our fire classes?
No, it was she took a model monkey course, and it was one of those things of like the first thing they teach you on that thing is that if you're being attacked, if you're having something like that be really clear and say that, not an altercation between a girlfriend and boyfriend or something like that. If some woman or anybody is shouting call 911, that's going to be the first trigger for people. And if you point at someone, then they know it's just like, you know, it's just like, okay, let's go do this thing.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because we always do say that, especially in our exhibitor classes, that if you have somebody there, you want to make sure. Like, if they look at you with big eyes, then maybe it's not going to happen. So maybe you need to say it again. So that's a good point.
yes.
Regarding the compression procedure that you just showed us, how long does this need to go on the floor?
That's a good question, right? So how long are we doing compressions for? Does anyone know?
40 minutes.
There's 2 answers, right? And so the one answer, someone just said it, it's until professional help arrives, until 911 shows up, right? What's the second one?
Good response.
Sure, but usually it doesn't happen like in Grey's Anatomy where we do compressions and then they wake up. Oh, thank you so much for saving my life. Here's why. A lot of the times what happens is we're going to get tired before that happens, right? And so it just depends. It depends on how long that person was down for. It depends on the medical complications with that person, right? And then all of that is going to be checked on our cardiac monitor, right? And so the best thing I can tell you is with those 2 things, right? So when you stop doing CPR, when professional help arrives, and the number 2 thing is when you get tired. When you get tired, you stop doing compressions, right? Because then at that point, you're no longer doing effective compressions anymore. And so that's why we stress that every 2 minutes, we always have to switch with somebody, right? The moment we start doing ineffective CPR is the moment that person's already dead. Right? Because then we're not getting adequate oxygenated red blood cells throughout their entire body, right? And then we're not able to fill that entire cylinder with oxygenated blood. And so when we're not able to do that, you're almost giving them you're just circulating around the carbon dioxide. And so it doesn't really work out. So,
Question. So I know you guys were talking earlier about like when we exhale, we have about 16% oxygen in our, when we breathe out. Isn't some oxygen better than no oxygen? I know that it's not what we're looking at here, room air.
Right.
Ideally, you want 100%
Right.
do that.
So yeah, you can still breathe out. You can still do the mouth to mouth for your loved ones, right? But for the most part, when we're doing hands-on CPR, a lot of people aren't comfortable for strangers, right? And we only do hands-on CPR for the public, right? We only do that for if you are walking out on the street and see someone fall down. So the idea behind that is just an awareness. It's to allow everyone to be comfortable with doing CPR without having to do the mouth to mouth, right? But obviously, yeah, if you're at home, you do as much mouth to mouth as you want. You do as much of the breathing as you want, right? But the one thing that's going to save your life is by pumping on their chest, and that's going to be the number one thing that's going to help save that person, right?
And while you're doing compressions, that machine's gonna say, all right, get away from the body, I'm doing another test kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Every 2 minutes, it's going to tell you to stop doing CPR. You can switch off. It's like a notification reminder, right? It's going to tell you when to stop. It's going to tell you to take a break. That's a mental note for you to say, okay, I'm getting tired. I might want to see if someone else can help, right? And so that's you made up a good point too, is that when we're in a big group like this, a lot of times we're going to assume that the other person is either going to call 911 or the other person is going to go in there and jump, right, and do CPR. The best thing you can do is if you get everyone to jump in together, now you can work as a team, right? You don't have to do this by yourself. And that's a great thing about this class, about building this community resilience, is that you're never doing this alone. And so we all have our strengths, we all have our weaknesses, right? And so when we all jump in and push together, we can do the compressions, we can get 911, we can properly oxygenate this patient, we can make sure the gate's open so that when professional responders come, it's just a smooth transition, right? And so everyone has a place. Not everyone needs to be doing compressions. Not everyone needs to be on the phone. Not everyone needs to do something. You can do something that helps this incident without actually being here, right? So that's why we say that if you're not comfortable doing compressions, if you're not comfortable doing anything, the best thing you can do is just at least call 911 to get us out here as soon as we can, right? So that's the only thing. Any other questions?
Okay, the question I guess I've got is, I had a situation where my wife collapsed, fell backwards, a few years ago. The question, I guess, in my mind was, first figure out, I could see she was bleeding because she hit her head, but she was clearly unconscious. Should I try and make sure I get a response from her first? Do I call 911 first? What's immediacy? You make the call first,
yeah,
and then you kind of check out and go to the person and make sure you're giving the best care that you can.
Always call 911 first, get them here, get us here, and then you do your checks, right? Then you can see if they're unconscious, if they're breathing, if they don't have a pulse, then you can go from there. It gets tricky when now you hit your head on something and then you start bleeding, right? That's when we start getting into the complications of, hey, what do we do? And so the best thing you can do is just call 911, see if they're breathing. You can still do compressions if they're not breathing, if they don't have a pulse and they're unconscious. I would be cautious on trying to move them, right? Unless you're in a tight space, you're in an area where maybe we can't, right? Because the first thing we're going to do is if we see someone and it's in a small room or a slim hallway, we're going to remove that person from that small hallway. We're going to bring them to a bigger area so that we have more room to work. So that it's easier for us to be able to do our assessment, do our skills, and then be able to transport them as soon as we can to the hospital. So, great question. Yeah, the number one thing you can do is just call 911, get us out here, and then you can do your checks.
It's kind of like Lassie. Lassie, get help! That's the first thing that Jimmy would do.
That's
right?
true.
Lassie, get help!
So,
That was.
if y'all want to practice, the mannequins are here and available for you. Then we can walk around and gauge how everyone's doing. So. If they want. Excellent. It's not moving. Did you call 911 first?
What's the number?
No, keep the knees down on this concrete.
Look at fast. You see the lights? When they both turn. One thing I neglected to do before was tell you guys how lucky we were to have an appearance by our CERT captain. This is Captain Hurtado. And Captain Hurtado is in charge of us 8 firefighter instructors. There's 8 of us. And also, he manages about 110 volunteers that we currently have sworn disaster service workers. So when you do take a CERT class, you have the option to continue on with CERT and go show up at meetings, take a few classes, and become a CERT sworn volunteer. And on the Palisades Fire, for example, we had approximately 50 of them that actually, what per day, 10 a day maybe? 12 a day, something like that?
Yeah, more.
Yeah, so 10, 15 volunteers a day were helping us out with the repopulation, with traffic control, things like that. So we do use, I'm not going to get into everything we use CERT volunteers for, but we do use CERT volunteers a lot. So anyway, that's kind of another thing he does. So we appreciate him coming. And then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to have Carrie talk really quick about the bag that she brought. And that will lead us right into Kurt with his disaster preparedness presentation.
But first, I want to point out that someone that works for us on our A team, the leader of our A team, has been CERT.
Oh, I went through the CERT training. It's wonderful.
Where did you take it?
Santa Monica. It's been a while. I need a refresher. Yes.
Do you remember your instructor?
I don't.
Must not have been me then, because you would remember me.
He moved to Arizona, I believe.
Oh, okay.
He was wonderful. If I recall it, I'll let you know.
Mitch McKnight?
Pardon me?
It might have been Santa Monica. Was it Santa Monica Fire Cert or was it LAFD?
I believe it was Santa Monica.
Yeah, it was probably Santa Monica. So that was kind of the junior varsity. So.
He was wonderful.
Did you? Where was that?
In Newport Beach.
Oh, that's Newport Beach, sir. All right,
They're a little different. There's no traffic there.
That's
They're a little quicker.
That's true. All right.
Unless you live on Balboa Island.
Oh, yeah.
It takes a little longer, especially in the summer.
So Gary's going to talk about those and.
So just real quick, I wanted to point out you all have this on your thing, and it's going to be on the website for Brentwood Park Unites. Even if you're not a Brentwood Park person, you are welcome to be part of that. The idea behind this is that we're creating a website that any community that wants to get together can understand the kind of thing we're doing here, and then they'll be password protected for those who are neighbors and part of this, for who can take someone in a wheelchair, who can take pets, all of those kind of things. But one of the things we highly recommend is something like this, an emergency duffel, and this sheet kind of gives you an idea of what we personally suggest. The fire department may have some other additional items to add in or whatever, and obviously you would too. But if you have one of these near the exit to your home, and in this house we'll have 2, so if we have to go out that way or go out this way, every property that we have will have one for me, mine's blue, and one for Will, which is black, and we'll have in it, and the reason for that is my clothes are in this one, and I don't think he probably wants to wear some of my clothes. Anyway, so we color code a lot of stuff like that just because it makes it easier to grab my whistle, which is blue, and his, which is black, or whatever. But these are all things that we recommend you have so that if there is an emergency, whether it's an earthquake, a fire, or a burglary, unfortunately, that you can grab something if you need to, if you're in a, if you get to a safe place, even if you have to walk out, your tennis shoes are in here, et cetera, and that's that.
It's also converts to a backpack.
Oh, that's right. It also converts to a backpack and also has a USB charger on it. Awesome.
Yeah, it's also another spot. We have them in each of our cars.
Yes.
And that was Ann's sister got on that and gave it as Christmas presents one year to everyone in the family. And it's just like ever since then, it's like, okay.
Yeah. And the only tricky part about that, I'll say, is if it's very large, it looks like something someone might want to break into your car and steal. So just my thought in the car is it's your tennis shoes and your whatever the important things are, but don't make it look like something that doesn't go like, oh man, I wonder what's in there. They're gonna be disappointed if they break in and get that back.
Did you put that one together, or did you buy it like that?
No, we put it together. It happened to be the Christmas present that we gave close friends this year for Christmas.
Doesn't include anybody.
So, I didn't get the call again. And a few of them told us that they took that bag when they had to back.
The smoked fish is the best.
It does smoked salmon and the smoked trout is the best.
Okay, so I'm just going to go over the basic stuff when we do our CERT program. Again, my name is Kurt Howard, and the whole class that we have, in all honesty, the way that she put this together, it's brilliant, to be totally honest with you, because he got the whole idea when he went back to Japan, because they were the most prepared for like earthquakes and how they did everything. So he wanted to see how they were doing. So what they do is they have a 3-day drill for everybody. But what they did is they had separate groups for doing different things. Like for example, this group over here, their whole job was to extinguish small fires with extinguishers or whatever. And then this other group down here, they were taking care of like the medical problems. Then there was a group that did search and rescue, and etc. There's separate groups for everything that they did. And it works really well for them. And they still stick with that to this day. And they are extremely prepared. Japan is like crazy prepared on these things. That's why you see everybody out there when they have an earthquake, everybody has a hard hat to protect their heads, because again, that's the majority of the problems, is things that are falling down and hit you in the head, and that could be a fatality right there. So they have their hard hats and they have their gear they keep with them, so they have their bags and everything ready at all times. So yes.
Here, I promise this is the last interruption. If you don't have a hard hat, a bicycle helmet works very well, and we often keep bicycle helmets near our bed, especially if you're in LA.
We do.
But we don't have them right now.
Well, we normally have Randy wear one at all times too. But yeah, but anything to protect your head. But the one thing with bicycle helmets, they're a one-time hit use. So once they're hit, they actually, the inside's fragment, so the second hit can take you out. That's why you get what you pay for, basically. So you want to make sure that you have something decent, okay? Our helmets and stuff that we have, they're just like heavy duty, because we have ceilings come down on us and all this other stuff. And the way they're built for us is like, they have a dome type deal on there because things hit and it breaks around us. So that's why, but like I said, I'm not going to get into all the details on that, but basically you do get what you pay for. So normally when we have our classes, we have a little starter kit that we hand out. So they'll have a backpack, it'll have some of that stuff, it'll have the helmet in there, some gloves, some goggles, and you're just a basic starting kit for you, to give you an idea. But everybody has their own comfort levels on how they do things and what they have for each other. Because one of the things that I always bag on for my classes is, you know, yeah, we're going to get you prepared on 7 different things that's in this program, and medical and all those that go through there. And the program that he put together, like I said, each class is 2 to 2.5 hours long, and it's over 7 weeks. And the reason why they did it this way is because they want to make sure in 2.5 hours, we're going to cram a lot of information on you. And we want that to sink in, and you think about that for a whole week, and next week we're going to cram more in it. So that way it stays with you, okay? Because we don't want to do it all in one day, because you're not going to retain it. And the other things that we do in the class, we do hands-on stuff. Because you could read anything and you can have death by PowerPoint and you're not going to retain it. But if you're actually doing it, you get that muscle memory and you learn how to do things. That's why for me, preferably the medical class for me is one of the bigger ones, because I want you guys to be able to take care of yourself, because it's amazing how many people out there don't even know how to put a Band-Aid on. So the medical part's huge, because like Randy said, it's going to be a while before we come back and help you. But the other thing that I harp on also is water. Okay, when we have disasters, whether it's fires, whether it's an earthquake, or if it's a pandemic, is we can go ahead and shelter ourselves, and if we run out of water, we're not going to survive, right? And usually when we have some sort of disaster, especially when it comes to earthquake, if you go to the store and think you're going to get any water, you're not going to get it.
So it's better to prepare yourself and get that stuff stocked up prior to anything happening, because it doesn't matter if I have all the generators and food and all this other stuff. If I don't have water, I'm still not going to survive. So I want to make sure that I have plenty of water set aside before something happens. And you can go ahead and rotate that through. Some of the biggest things that you got to prepare yourself when you're storing water, you got to make sure that you keep the water off of concrete and out of the sunlight. The main reason with the concrete, that's why if you go into any Costco, Sam's Club, anything like that, everything's sitting on pallets, right? Because it has to be away from the concrete. Concrete has acid and lye in it. So over time, that's going to seep even through glass, and it's going to make your water poisonous. And the reason why we say don't keep it out in the sunlight, because if there's any impurities, the sunlight makes it corrode faster. So if you do those two things, I know at 88, we were using water to make coffee and all this other stuff that was probably close to 40 years old, because it's in pallets, it's in boxes, and they're gallon jug sealed, and they're still sealed, and they're clear water. It's drinkable water. Obviously, if you pick it up and it's like, oh, that looks pretty cloudy, we're not drinking it, right? Okay. But we also talk about ways of purification of water, on what you can do. Okay. So all these purifiers that you can buy, these little straws that they say purifies this, this, and that. Just remember, read what it purifies, because that's all it purifies. It doesn't purify everything. Okay. But this is why I want one of those things to make sure that you have enough water for yourself and your family and your pets. Okay, pets are our family, right? So you want to make sure that you put that stuff aside, and it's everybody's comfort level on how much you put aside. I mean, I have a ton of water. I've got 4 of the 55 gallons, and I have tons of boxes of water, because that's my comfort level, because I know if something bad happens, I'm going to have plenty. And I know there's plenty of people around me that's probably going to need a little bit of help. I'll help some of them, not all of them, because I don't like all of them. Okay, but that's a preference, all right? The cat comes over, it's like, iffy. But no, we want to make sure that you have a dog. What about a dog?
Not into guns.
Oh yeah.
What about a dog? Dog comes over, you good?
Oh, dogs are fine. I like them better. But you want to have that stuff set aside for you. And then as far as your emergency foods, if you have dry goods and you store them properly, some of the biggest things that I have on set aside for me is rice and beans. So stored properly, if you have them in the right containers, they're not going to go bad, but you still check it. But you use these things up, and like even the stuff I have in my pantry, I'll take that stuff, I'll use it up. Once I run out, I take out my backup supply and put it in the pantry and buy more. So you're just rotating. So if something bad happens, you're eating the same stuff that you normally eat anyways. So, but that's just me. And then for your pets as well, you want to make sure that you have plenty of good food set aside for them, so that they can survive or eat what you're eating. You know, and then some of the dog food that's out there is probably better for you than eating from McDonald's for sure. You know? I had 4 pups before, and I always made sure that I checked the dog food, and I made sure that they were eating the best stuff, because they deserve it. And I don't want to feed them crap. And that's why my Brutus, he lived for 18 years. So pugs usually don't live that long, but you know, he had a good life. So Brutus was the man. Yes.
About water, what do you recommend? Do you recommend buying plastic jugs? You said something about glass. You said something about cardboard. What if you're going to stock up on water? What do you prefer?
Again, they're saying that the thicker plastic lasts longer and it's better for you. But now they're talking about, you know, those particles of plastic that's in there. Again, for me, those little particles that might be in there, I think is a crock. And they're just trying to get you not to buy the little bottles and stuff. Because why is it then that this little bottle of water right here is going to take 1,000 years to deteriorate if it's just out in the open?
Yeah, it's because it's impenetrable.
Right. But again, like I said, it's lasts almost forever, right? So this is why I'm saying, you know, it just depends on your comforts and what you want to put together. I mean, all my stuff's not bulletproof. Nothing's bulletproof. Things could go bad. But I am doing the right things. I'm keeping them off the concrete. I'm keeping them covered out of the sunlight. So in the case that I have it and I need it, it's there. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Someone said something about keeping all that food and water in a trash can outside your house, because if your house comes down, all the water and all the stuff in your pantry is not gonna be able to fit. Is that a good suggestion to keep it like in a trash can or something outside of your house?
Well, not everybody has that luxury. Like, for example, if you live in a condo apartment complex.
Right.
But, I mean, I've got a little mini barn that I have stuff that's put in, that's set outside. So, but like I said, not everybody has that luxury.
Right.
And then, not everybody has backup motorhomes and all this other stuff. But I do have tents and all that stuff ready if I need it. Because again, if we have a big earthquake or a big fire, you have nothing left, and you have your vehicles and you have a nice tent to go in there. I don't know if you guys ever go camping or anything like that, but a nice tent makes a big difference. So, again, these are preparation things that you can do prior to anything happening. So, anybody been a Boy Scout or anything like that before? So again, that's a lot of things. So those things are huge, in all honesty, because a lot of the stuff. And this is like when we have Eagle Scouts that join the fire department, they're one up on most people, because most of them know how to tie all the knots and all this other stuff. So it's a good thing. And knowledge is power. But this is why in this program, we're trying to condense everything here of 17 and a half hours into this short period of time. And there's no way that we can go over everything. But that's why, for me, what we do, if we have an earthquake here, everybody should know what the first thing that you're going to do anyways, right? What do you do? If we had an earthquake right now,
Go underneath this.
duck, cover, and hold. That's what you want to do. And a lot of people, like I was telling you before, that muscle memory, a lot of people, kids do it at school. They make them do it at school. And their desks are sturdy and all this other stuff, but they have that muscle memory. You've been told this, but have you physically done it? And this is why it's important to do that with your family, like literally get under there, because if you're not holding on to this table, it's going to move away from you and you've lost that protection.
I think school kids in this country are supposed to do that. They have drills every year.
Yes.
And they do what you just said. They go underneath
Yes.
the table and they
Yes.
sit there for a few minutes.
Right.
My question to you is, most of the houses that are built in this country are built out of wood. Most of them.
Yes.
Part of the reason for this is because of earthquake protection, allegedly. I do believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that if there is an earthquake and we are in a wooden built house, that the risk is much smaller than if we were in a house that was made out of brick, cement, stone, whatever.
Oh, absolutely, because
Right.
again, the building codes that we have, we're using that, and with straps and everything else, it's so that they can move more
Right.
without collapsing.
Correct.
Again, if you had something more solid, yes, it's gonna fill.
Yeah.
This is like for after every single earthquake we've had, even with the Northridge earthquake, building codes changed.
Correct.
So, because before we have so many houses here that are so old that they're not even bolted down on a foundation.
Correct. Correct.
So once we have an earthquake, they shift off there, and that's why those ones collapse. It doesn't matter if they're built out of wood or anything.
It's because they don't have concrete bases on which the foundation is not
Right.
made out of concrete. But let's talk about today's houses, which are built on concrete foundations. If the superstructures or anything that's built above the ground is made out of wood, isn't that, let's say, less of a concern when compared to a structure that is built with cement and bricks and whatever?
Yeah, and it's, again, for us where we live, we deal with earthquakes all the time. So that's why the building codes change and they do things better. Those guys go through stuff to make everything move as much as possible, so it's not solid. Even our high-rise buildings, the way they build them, they go down to the rock bed to put them in for the solid base, but everything else they make so that it can actually move. Some of them are even on bearings. And then and I just learned this recently too, is they had weights on the top of the building as well, so it counter-reacts the movement on the taller buildings. Because if that's not there, then they sway back and forth and twist, and then they collapse. But they, like I said, those are the engineers that come up with this stuff. They're freaking amazing on how they do this.
I think what you're trying to get at is a wood frame single family dwelling which is safer than a lot of the brick ones that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But the issue is not, like you said, is your pantry gonna fall down and you have all your stuff in there? If you're in a single family home, wood frame construction, the chances, yes, are less than some of the older brick buildings. But the concern is the non-structural hazards.
Yeah, I understand. What I'm just saying is
That's what hurts people, is the
if I
non-structural.
have a piece of wood drop on my head, I have more chances of surviving than if a piece of concrete lands on my head, to put it simply.
Yes, and that's not why they use wood to do houses in this country. I think
I-
mostly it's because we have a lot of trees and we do a lot of stuff with wood. But yeah, when I say this, it's more safe in a modern single family dwelling that's wood frame construction. It's because the walls are not gonna fall because of the way, all the shear wall they use and all the construction types that they use, like Kurt's talking about, is a lot safer than the old brick, where the brick would fall apart. The brick didn't even have cement in it in the 30s and before then. Now they have cement in it and all kinds of additional stuff that we talk about in our class.
Yeah, even in this building itself, with the outside where you have the rocks and all this other stuff, you know, not all of them are reinforced. So, and usually, if you have a chimney, chimneys fail. This is why during the Northridge earthquake, a lot of times, they spent a lot of time throwing hoses around the chimneys and fish pulling them over, so they didn't fall over on them. So,
Actually, this house.
well, yours is exceptional.
I was involved in design, and so I can tell you it's actually steel. And wood covers the steel has the movement to be able to move, and whatever you see stone is just applied to the outside. And when we had that earthquake a few weeks ago during the Oscars, I was upstairs, my hand went like this, that's how I knew we had an earthquake, and almost everyone else I talked to said their house was doing this or whatever. So I just want you to know you should feel comfortable.
We're pretty safe here. Yeah, she was telling us about the house when we first got here and stuff. So this is an exceptional house for sure. So, but like the other ones where you're at, some of the stuff, you need to worry about cinder block walls, you know, anything your neighbors, because those things come down, and just anything overhead too. So especially a lot of the places downtown with the electrical wires, just assume that they're charged and stay away from them as much as possible, because we want to make sure that you're in a safe place. And that's one thing that you guys should have too, is if something big were to happen, where's a safe place that you can go to? Like an open area where you can just kind of write it out and wait to get the information, because the majority of all the information is going to be coming across on the radio and saying, hey, this is where we're setting up for first aid, this is where we have supplies, this is where we have this, and that. The majority of that's going to be coming over the radio. It's not like you're going to be walking into your house and watching TV again, right? So it just depends. There's so many things that we have to be concerned about. So, you know, power outages. Not everybody has backup generators. And from what we just saw in Spain, even if you have a backup generator, some of those might not be working, because that's exactly what happened over there. But you want to have a plan at least. That's the biggest thing. And especially for your family, is if you had a fire in your house, have a place where you go out, you stay and meet there, to let us know, hey, everybody's out, and then we can do our job, because we're trained to take care of that. We can do that. But once you tell us, hey, somebody's left in the house, they're not here, that changes the way we do our attack on everything, because life comes first. So we don't want to risk our lives for no reason. But if there's a life involved, we'll risk our life to save that life, because that's what we're paid for. Okay? But having plans is huge, especially if you have kids. You want to make sure that the kids get out, they get in that area, they stay there. Because I lost one of my buddies because we had a fire, and they had that safe place that they went to, and the kid went there first, but then he wandered off from there. So they thought he was still in the house. They told us, and my buddy died because they were going in there to try to save that life, and the kid was already outside. So he died for no reason. Okay, but this is why it's really important for you guys to have a plan beforehand, so that we can do our job and do the best that we can. But these classes are preparing you guys to take care of yourself until we can come around. Like you have your local fire station, you can go down there, you know, if something first happens, obviously, we're gonna be out. Because we gotta drive our first in areas, and then see what's the worst thing that's going on, if it's an earthquake. If we have fires, of course, we're gonna go where it starts, and we're gonna try to save as much as we can. And like everything's different. We have a pandemic, you know? It's best to be prepared to hunker down and stay where you're at. So all these things are some of the stuff that we go over on here. But that's why, like I said, it's such a huge class, and we cover so many things. We wanna make sure that you guys are as prepared as possible. So I can't stay here for 7 weeks, but if you want to ask me some questions, I've been doing this gig for quite some time. And to be honest with you, as a firefighter, I've been a firefighter for a long, long time. It wasn't until I got injured and put into this unit that I was prepared. Because once I started teaching this, it's like I found out, yeah, I'm not that prepared. But I do practice where I preach.
What are the biggest things you see, the biggest mistakes people make? And what would you advise us if you could just give us like?
Number one's water.
Water.
Number one is always going to be water, because the majority of people don't have that stored up in the first place, and then backup food. Okay, because again, you got to start with the basics, and you can't get more basic than water. You know, and then you build upon that. You know, as far as like how you protect yourself or what you want to do for that, that's an individual thing. How you feel comfortable with you having your grab bag, that's an individual thing too. Because my grab bag has a lot of medical stuff in it, because I know I'm gonna be doing that, versus you guys. So it just depends on your expertise on what you take with you and you feel comfortable, okay? As far as your safety, again, that's up to you guys. I can't tell you what caliber guns or anything else, because again, that's not my place. That's an individual choice on what you do. That makes sense?
Is there a way that you can use your pool water? Like you suggest everybody go and get one of those hoses, because I know a lot of people save their homes by filling, like having some special hose.
Oh, bucketing and stuff like,
No,
yeah.
no, not, no, the
the
pump hose.
But pumps, yeah, again, that's a personal preference type deal. You can buy some awesome pumps, okay? But you also want to make sure that you have a generator to run it. Because a lot of places where you have the fire going, it's not going to have electricity. So you got to think about these things on how many GPM you want to put, how much hose you're going to be using. Because yeah, we still swimming pool water when we're putting out fires from the engines. You do a hard suction, we'll suck that pool dry.
Can't you also use that to drink the pool water by
No.
doing something?
No.
Someone said you could put pool water into a bucket and then put these tablets. Is that not true?
That's not true.
Thank you.
That's not, the only way that's even possible is like if you have a saltwater pool.
Yeah.
And again, you can get the salt out of that, but at the regular pools, you can't get all the chemicals out of it. There's only one filter that can do that, and that's owned by the military, and that is the size of a water tender. They can do that, okay? But other than that, you just use that pool water to put out fires, pour it in the toilet to flush the toilets, things like that, but you can't, there's not a filter to use for a regular pool.
Like a saltwater pool, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a question about pets. How do you deal with them? Is there any plan, any suggestion that you have, especially with cats or dogs or anything like that?
Yeah, it's, when you take them with us, again, if we have any type of situation, an emergency deal, is we have places to shelter people, but again, your pets need to be in a cage. They need to have their own cage to take them to, and then you can take them someplace, but they have to be in a cage. Of course, it's different with horses. I have to find a cage for a horse. But they have equestrians where you can take even horses that they'll take care of. But regular pets, they have to be caged. So make sure they have some cool ones too. They fold up, they don't take any room at all. And then when you need them, you take them out of the back, you open them up and put the pets in there, and then they can take care of them.
But at the time of, let's say, like earthquake or something like that, and you're looking for your pet to save him or whatever, so what is your
In all honesty, pets are smarter than us. You know, they have that instinct survival. So even on fires, you know, that I've gone, the pets are usually out. It's like, yeah, this sucks. I'm going out. You know?
So basically just leave like doors open for them to run away or?
Again, it depends. It's incident driven is what we always say. Like for example, if it's an earthquake or something like that, they'll probably follow you or get out prior to. But yeah, you can leave the door open, but if it's a fire, you don't want to do that, because now you're letting more oxygen in, so the house is gonna burn even quicker. So, but like I said, the majority of fires that I've gone on to, is like, the pets are already out. Just like I said, they're smarter than us. So they have that instinct, you know, a lot of us just lost it because we got too soft. So, you know, I'd rather sit and watch TV and let it burn around me. But pets are smart, they really are. I don't know if you guys ain't seen anything different, but they're usually out on the ones that I'm on. So, yes.
One thing that we just started doing a couple of years ago, maybe 10 years ago, is securing furniture and artwork, frames, if anything that could, in an earthquake, even with a little bit of movement, fall on you and you're sleeping on that sofa, taking a nap on that sofa over there. And so we really recommend those, what do they call them, earthquake straps?
Straps.
Yeah, straps. And they're easy for someone to do, and we just put them on everything pretty much that could move.
Yeah. The other thing is those child-proof deals for the cabinets.
Yes, same thing, yeah.
Yeah, same thing. So we go over that stuff in this class as well. And the main thing is, like, you want to, when you're securing something like that, you want to make sure that it's movable. If you put like a solid bracket on there, especially on something bigger, because the ground and the walls are moving separately, it'll just break away from it. But if it's a strap, it'll move, but it won't fall over. They do the same thing. Like, I mean, if you go into any of our fire stations, all the fridge are strapped down to the ground. Because if you're in the kitchen is the most dangerous place to be during an earthquake. Because now you're going to have all the plates and glass and all that stuff, and the Campbell soup hitting you in the head. So it's a very dangerous place. I've got bazillions of pictures from the Northridge earthquake, and it's funny how the fridges, all the stuff inside the fridge is dumped out on the floor. You know, all of it. It's just out and then closed up again. It's like, oh, that's nice. All that food that you could have used for survival is now mixed with the broken glass and everything else. Anything else? Anything else we got for us?
What about the earthquake warnings? If you get one of those earthquake warnings, like I just got one the other day, and I was downstairs, I didn't drop whatever, and I actually ran out the front door.
Well, again, it depends on how far away and where that warning's coming from. Because yeah, we had one down at San Diego, and we had that warning, so we had a little bit of time to where we could like, it didn't hit us yet.
Yeah.
So I could have gone outside, and then when I'm outside, it's like, oh yeah, that's what they're talking about. I finally got here.
Yeah.
But again, it just depends on where it's at. How much time do we have? Because those are great things for us too. In the fire department, there's a lot of them that have that warning, and it automatically opens up the door so that our apparatus can get out. Because we have to pull all of our apparatus out of the fire station before it gets there, or even if it's doing it, we get it out so that the building doesn't collapse and we have no apparatus to respond yet. Because even with the Northridge earthquake, we had a couple of stations where the doors were so jammed, you couldn't even open to get out. So that's just another thing we learned from all those things. Yes.
The earthquake warning thing that came up on people's phones, was that something that they loaded onto their phone?
Yes.
Oh, so do you know what that is?
Do you know the website?
It's called Quake Alert.
Yeah.
Quake Alert. I think so.
Should already be automatically.
There's two of them. I registered for two of them. There's
I don't think
Quake
it's saved anybody's life to this day. And now it's going to.
Okay, so you don't recommend.
I'm not a big fan of it, but I mean, it's cool. It's cool to know that it's coming, I guess, but.
Yeah, the last one that I went off, I just thought it was an Amber Alert. To be totally honest with you, that's what I thought.
That's the same sound. It's the same sound.
So,
Is anybody gonna run outside at an earthquake?
Well, isn't it advisable?
Well, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, maybe it's really, you know,
How many people are gonna run outside if there's an earthquake?
It depends where you are.
Yeah. You're inside, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the last thing you want to do is run outside. The last thing.
all the fire and the debris coming off is good.
And I know you went over it quickly, but we need to, what do we say? What are those 3 words? Drop, cover, hold, right? We need to drop, cover, hold. But we don't want to run out until we know the earthquake is stopped. There's not an aftershock, and then maybe we can go safely outside. But what are we going out there for?
So you don't get crushed.
By what?
By
By the building.
By the building.
The debris that's falling off your house,
The
right?
the thing is outside, it's more dangerous because trees are falling, power poles might have fell, glass falls off the second floor. Chimneys in Northridge, chimneys fell off roofs and people got hurt by walking outside. So, especially if you're in a high-rise building, please don't walk outside. Because all that stuff that falls, they say if there's a major earthquake downtown, there's gonna be glass piled up high, or like
Over 20 feet.
over 20 feet high of glass. If there's a major earthquake downtown. The buildings aren't gonna fall, but the glass is gonna fall. So you don't wanna be outside. So in the Whittier Narrows 1987 earthquake, 2 people died, and one person of those 2, I don't know what the other one was, died because they ran outside the house. So
Yeah,
something
part of
hit.
the building collapsed on him and killed him. The other one was a heart attack.
So we don't want to go outside. We want to drop, cover, hold, meaning hold on to what we're under, or if we're not under anything, hold on like this, right? Hold on to your most vulnerable spot, okay? If you can't get under anything, go against the interior wall, because they don't tend to have glass on them. And so you'll probably be a little safer there, because if something falls, like it's gonna fall on you, it may hit that wall first. That makes sense?
Do they still say right to like a door frame?
No.
No.
So,
No.
that was
333.
the buildings he was talking about, like brick buildings, the walls used to collapse because they weren't built with cement yet. So the only thing that would stand would be the doorway. So they would tell you to go to the doorway. Which, if you think about it, I mean, I guess that's the only thing that would work back then, but the door swings, and that's going to hit you right out of the doorway. And then there's a lot of people in here right now, and only a couple doorways, right? So that really wasn't the greatest advice anyway, but that advice it's been passed down generation to generation, and it's stopping with us.
Yeah, especially all the newer buildings, they're all metal studs and metal doorways, and they just sway back and forth. And you're probably going to get more injured from a door than anything else. So, and like I'm saying, it depends on the earthquake itself. Northridge earthquake didn't last that long to begin with. You know, just to duck, cover, and hold for that little bit of time. You know, compared to what they had in Japan, that big earthquake they had in Japan lasted almost for 5 minutes. So you'd have to, you know, Northridge seemed like it was a long time, but can you imagine just holding on and waiting for that period of time? It's going to seem like an eternity, but you're still safer just doing that. Wait till the shaking stops and then go out. Like I said, go to that place, that safe place that you already thought about. So you can go there and get your thoughts together with your team, or anybody that's there and say, hey, what can we do? What do we need? What do I have? What do you have? Let's put it all together and just make it work the best that we can.
So when I went through the CERT training, sorry about that.
That's
When
okay.
I went through the CERT training, the guy who instructed us said the safest place is down right on the side of your bed, because things coming down, they're gonna hit the mattress. I don't know if you guys.
Again,
teach
yeah,
that.
that's one of those
what
things,
he told
that's
me.
the same thing as like a duck cover and hole kind of, but obviously you don't want to get underneath your bed.
No, he said just right on the side, because it's like an angle. If a
Yeah.
good thing comes, it's gonna hit the
It
bed.
falls down on there, the weight's just like we're saying on a table, okay? The weight's dispersed on top of the bed, and then on the side there, you'll have that little pocket of safety.
Right, okay, 'cause that's what they.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, that makes sense, okay? But there's a lot of people that they were still saying, that are out there thinking, well, stay in bed, put the pillow over your head. No, don't do that. You get off to the side of it. Yes, sir.
Interesting, it's talking about the Hanshin earthquake. I happened to be in Tokyo at the time, and we felt it all the way in Tokyo, going for 5 minutes at a time. And you know, it was the old days when they said go to the doorway. I started to do that. It turned out the building I was in had these wedges that would go like this, could move, and they were right at the door. If I'd gone, right as I opened up, the thing opened, I would have fallen down. I stood in the doorway.
So it was an
TV
expansion joint right
yeah,
there.
Expansion joint. And the first TV show that came on, I looked out and saw my apartment building flat from where I used to live.
Yes.
If you're in a multi-story house like this one, for example, what's the best floor theoretically to be on, would you say?
I mean, the one thing that you have here is with your elevator and stuff like that, they usually make sure that's one of the strong points, even on a high-rise building. Around the elevators, it's one of the strongest points that they build first, and then they go out from that. So, but like I said, without knowing your floor plans and all this other stuff, see where the bearing walls are and all that other stuff, it just depends. Because every house is going to be different around here. None of you have the same floor plan.
What's usually the envelope in terms of magnitude of an earthquake, in the sense that, I've experienced some earthquakes in here, like 4s or 5s, and things start shaking.
Mm-hmm.
Should you, like, for example, is always the strongest shake at the beginning, or
not necessarily? No.
Okay.
Because just even with the Northridge, that the first quake was a pre-quake.
Okay.
The larger quake was the second one.
So, like, when things start shaking, is it best to, that kind of hold?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You
So
still want to do that?
You don't know how bad it's going to be.
No.
Essentially.
No.
Got it.
And like I said, have that safe area that you know you're going to go to.
Right.
Go there and just wait, because there's one of the best analogies I had from the experts from that study earthquakes is it's kind of like when you're popping popcorn in a microwave, and how at certain times it gets stronger and less and stronger. You just never know. Just when the aftershocks are like that, you can't predict it. You can't time it. They just do what they do. So it's just best to stay out, be in a safe place, and just wait to see what's going to happen. We got plenty of things to worry about around here.
And if you're driving, should you stop?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of times when people are driving, they think it's kind of like getting a flat tire because it just wobbles a little bit. But again, you look around, it's like, oh, there's power poles are moving and stuff. So obviously, look and say, if there's power poles here, I want to pull over on the other side of the street, not by the power poles. But you do want to stop, because especially when you're on the freeways, because some of the overpasses have been collapsed. And this is why we tell people to stop, because you can't tell the road's gone until you're right there. So we have from Northridge too, again, we have a video of a 5 mile an hour fatality because they're driving, and by the time they saw it, slowed down, it's like, yeah. So even a CHP officer, one of the reasons he died, because overpass was gone and looked like it's continuous, and he drove right off it. Yeah. So, any other questions? Again, I want to get on to getting Randy back up here, because he talks more than me, to do the extinguisher training. So if you guys want to take another break, there's more food up there. And we'll be here, like I said, if you have questions after.
Should we turn off any utilities? Which ones?
Yes.
Okay. How about water?
No.
Okay. Well, let's think about this. So, if there's well, now you guys know firsthand that if there's open water lines running, then we don't have a lot of water pressure, do we? You guys found that out if you watched the news on the Palisades fire, right? Yeah, maybe there were some dry hydrants. Yeah, maybe that reservoir was dry, but there was a lot of water being pumped out of working fire hydrants that night, right? So we know that if there's open water lines because of fractured water lines, then we may not have a lot of water pressure. But what else is associated with fractured water lines? Contaminated water. So you might think, oh, I still got water, I'm good. But you're drinking it and it's contaminated. By what? What else is under the ground? Sewer. Pretty nasty, isn't it? You don't want to drink that water. So what we recommend is at a 5.5 earthquake or greater, that's when you should shut off your utilities. Now, how do you know it's 5.5? Well, maybe it says it on that app. Or maybe there's all of a sudden you get a radio alert. Or maybe your spidey senses come up and go, you know what, that was a pretty darn big earthquake. Shit fell, there was some damage. That's probably enough to crack water lines, right? And maybe it's a 5.4, maybe it's a 5.8. but you're close enough. Okay, so you may not know, but if you do know it's a 5.5 or greater, then you should shut off those utilities. So if you want to check the radio, what radio station would you check?
KUSC.
You go to USC?
No, classical radio thing. They're USC.
Oh, yes. I'm a USC fan, but I like that.
Cool.
So, no, does nobody listens to radio anymore? KFI? Okay, that was all right. I know what your beliefs are. KR? No, it's KNX 1070. AM radio, KNX 1070. News radio. You guys ever listen to that station? All right, I was waiting for somebody to say that. All your guys' cars here do not have AM radio, right? Only Sirius XM. Okay. What about FM? Do they have FM?
Yes.
Okay. 97.1 and 1070 are simulcast on the same station. They're the same. 97.1 FM or 1070 AM. And it's news all the time. That's going to come right out and let you know everything they know. Maybe they don't know yet. But like I said, if your spidey senses tell you that it's probably a big earthquake, notice all the little shakings that we had? They're usually right around 4, aren't they? And you don't have too much, you don't have anything fall, you don't have much damage and stuff. So think, it's gonna, if it's a 5.5, that's a lot greater than what we've been feeling lately. So you're gonna be like, yeah, I probably should, I was worried when I was under the table or next to my bed or in the interior wall, I was worried. And, it can't hurt to just shut the gas off and the water off now. And hopefully it was a 5.0 and turn it back on. So should you turn your gas back on if you turn it off?
But don't you need special tools to turn off your gas?
You need special.
Well, unless you have the Northridge battle, then the little ball falls down.
Okay, so we'll talk about that in a minute. I've never heard it called the Northridge job, but I like that. I'm sure Kurt has. He used to live in Northridge.
Yeah.
But you do need a special tool unless you have a automatic shut-off, right, or Northridge job. But yes, when you turn off your gas, you need to have the gas company come turn it back on.
Which
And so
could
you might-
be a long time.
which could be a very long time. And the reason that those valves are not as popular anymore, because they were trying to get every single person in the city of LA to have them, is because if someone hits it with a lawnmower, if someone hits it with a whatever, or hand, whatever, and it senses that there was a 5.5 or greater, it shuts off, and you don't have any gas, and you're calling the gas company. So they have got to come out all the time to turn the gas back on people. And so they were like, that's too much work for us. So they're not pushing those anymore, the earthquake valves. But they are good, especially if you know how to. So when I cover my badge, that means I'm not seeing. That means turn the video off. Okay? So there is a way to turn it back on, but like I said, you shouldn't turn your own gas back on. But if you know that your whole house is electric appliances, you have no hot water heater, maybe your only gas is the stove or your jacuzzi or whatever, then you know you don't have pilot lights. Okay? Or maybe you have one pilot light in your whole house. You turn your gas back on, you go light that pilot light and you're fine. But a lot of the new stuff is all electronic lit pilot lights, even on the gas stuff, and that's not as much of a factor anymore. But if you have an older house, or if you know your appliances, you have a lot of pilot lights, and you turn that gas back on, you might be letting gas emit into your house, and that's not good. Okay? So if you do get a hold of the gas company to come out, they're going to turn your gas back on, they're going to check for leaks, they do all that good stuff. They'll spend a little bit of time there since they're already out. So we're good with that, right? Shut our gas and water off at a 5.5. How about your electricity? Do we shut that off?
No, because we can't have the radio.
Can't hear what? You don't have a battery powered radio? So part of, or just go turn your car off.
Yeah, that's right.
Part of your, a lot of earthquake kits have either a hand crank radio or battery powered radios, or both. So you literally crank it and it's either a light or a radio, and you crank it for its to charge the battery. So those are all little things that you can find. Since you guys are writing down, there's a website and a place in the valley, and trust me, we don't get any kickbacks or anything like that. I've never actually even been there. Like I said, Kurt's been there because he used to live in Northridge, but it's actually in Van Nuys, and it's called SOS Survival Products. And if you tell them that you took a CERT class, or that they don't know me, but if you say that one really good instructor, mustache, say that you went to a miniature CERT class, whatever. If you say you're a CERT, they'll give you like 10% off. Do they still do that? Yeah. So they're pretty cool in there, and they have everything you can imagine, from a kit to keeping your car all the way to 30-day supply. Water, you're asking about what the best thing to put water in is. They're experts on all that stuff. They'll sell you either a 55-gallon barrel, they'll sell you whatever you want, they'll sell you. They have all that stuff. But if you want to buy it on Amazon and you want to go look at it there, that's fine. I'm not telling you guys where to buy it, but that's a cool place because you can go check everything out. So that's cool. So electricity. So electricity you might end up losing it anyway, right? But if it's on and you're going to leave your house, shut it off, because something could happen when you're gone, and something could spark and could start a fire. So if you're going to leave, so you're going to find your panel, your electrical panel, which all you guys should, after tonight, want to know where your gas meter is, how to shut it off, your electric panel is, how to shut it off, and your water meter is, how to shut it off. Okay? Because like he said, it's a special tool. I'm not going to go digging through my car right now, but I'll show you guys before I leave. I have a version of it, but it's basically a gas shut-off tool. And you find that the valve that comes out of the ground that feeds your gas meter is very low to the ground, and you just put that tool on and you just turn it, and that's it, and it shuts it off. You basically go from, if the pipe is going up like this, the valve is like this. So you just turn, like this. So you just, right now, gas is allowed to flow through there because the valve's like this. As soon as you turn it like that, it's no longer flowing through. So that's shutting your gas off. Water at the street would be the same type of valve, or a lot of the newer stuff have hand valves. Okay, if you have a hand valve, you're lucky. So I'm not going to tell everyone individually where their stuff is and how to find it. I can tell you your gas is either in a basement, or it's on one side of the house near a gate to where they can read the meter. I'm not going to tell you where it's at, but I'm going to tell you you should find it and figure out how to turn it off. Leave a wrench by there. Tie the wrench with a long string to the piping, so you can do it if you had to. Water, you could either shut off at the front of your house where the water comes in from the street, or you could go to the sidewalk where your water main is, where the DWP charges you anything past that water main, and you shut it off there. So that's gas and water. Electricity, it's usually going to be the same thing on one of the sides of the house, near somewhere where they can, because they used to have to read the meters. Now they have all electronic. Now I don't even think they have to come out. It just goes straight to their, straight to the DWP facility or whatever. But you're going to see a big meter and then a big gray box. Open it up. All these little breakers. You just want to shut all the little breakers off individually. And then there's one that says main. And you shut the main off. Then when you want to turn it back on, turn the main back on. And then all the little breakers individually turn it off. That way you don't get a power surge. If you just go shut off the main, then you can get a power surge. You can send back power to the power pole. You could have a spark up there and all that. So you don't want to do that. So you want to shut off all the little breakers, stop all the power, and then shut the main off. So those are the three utilities that my part of Kurt's presentation that I think is important. He did mention generators. Look into having a backup generator. Doesn't have to be one that's built in that costs you $10,000 that runs off propane or gas or diesel, all that. All you need is whatever you need to run if your power is out. So maybe you have a refrigerator. Okay? Maybe you have dialysis treatment. Maybe you have some medication that needs to be refrigerated. I hope you have backup power to where you can power that refrigerator. Because if not, you're not going to have no medicine. Okay? So generators, with generators, I'll just give my real quick soapbox on them, is make sure whatever you want to run, how many watts that it takes to run that, that's how many watts of the generator that you need. Okay? So if you're going to run that refrigerator right there, you can buy a little 1,000 watt generator for $500 at Harbor Freight. It's going to run that refrigerator, maybe a little light that's LED, and it'll charge your phone. But I'm sure if you have a lot more stuff in your house, and you'll probably want a little bit bigger generator. They also have generators that run, you flip a switch and it'll either run on gasoline or propane. Those aren't bad to have, especially if you have propane around the house because you have barbecues. So you might have propane around the house. Well, now you can use those either for barbecuing and cooking or warming up boiling water or to run a generator. And this is all stuff that you plan on staying, right? And that's the thing, is are we staying or are we going? No one ever knows what we're going to do because we don't know how bad the earthquake is with us, how bad the fire is at us. We don't know the exact particulars and we can't say. So we have to be prepared whether we're going to stay or whether we're going to go. You know, you may have somebody that lives in Arizona that you're going to try to go to their place. Okay? So do you keep gas in your car? Do you wait till it goes to the fuel light comes on and then you get gas the next morning on the way to work? Well, you're not going to Arizona. You know why? Because the gas stations are closed. Gas stations require power, right? Some of them have backup generators, and if they do, you ever seen Costco gas, the line at Costco gas station? Triple that. If there's one gas station in town that has backup power, you're going to be waiting a long time. And you'll probably run out of gas in line, waiting for that gas station. So always keep at least half a tank of gas. Because your idea may be like, well, you know what, I am sort of prepared to stay, but I want to get out of here. I can't live like this. And hopefully you can. Because remember, the arteries out of here are going to be, and I mean, to say the least.
Solar generators, or what is that?
So solar, they're like, so solar has like, you have like battery packs that are solar powered, and they're not that strong. They don't run a whole lot of stuff, and the power gets drawn faster than it can recharge. That's the stuff that you'll buy, you know, at wherever, if you buy it online or wherever. Now, like my house, I have solar. I live in Lancaster. I have solar, but if the power goes out and the grid is down, I have no power. So there's different types, there's battery backups, right? So if you get solar, you can get battery backup. Now the batteries may not be that strong. They have like a Tesla wall battery, it's called, and that's the strongest one I think you can get. And that will leave you like a day with some power, okay? If you want to build this doomsday system, you can live off the grid, and you can live off solar and never need DWP at all. But it costs a lot of money. It costs a lot more money than paying DWP for your power. So my recommendation is if you do want the solar power, you get solar panels for your whole house, but get that backup battery. But sometimes it's easier just to get a generator. And you can, that panel we were talking about where you shut off all those breakers, you can get a generator and you can get a plug. An electrician can set up a plug right next to that panel. And whatever breaker, wherever that goes in the house that you want powered, that electrician will wire that breaker to that plug. So once you give that plug power from your generator, it now powers whatever little breakers you had hooked up to there. So you can essentially use that generator, fire it up. You don't need any extension cords except the one that goes from the generator right to that plug that you made. So that's the easiest and probably most cost-effective way to do it. But the hallelujah package, if you will, is getting one of those whole house generators that are going to run you. Well, this house is not 10 grand. This house, it would cost you a lot more than that. But an average-sized house is probably you're probably going to spend 10 grand on a backup generator that's like built in. Like all of our newer fire stations have backup generators. So you see this big generator. The higher buildings, all these big generators. A lot of the new schools, they have the big generators. Those are backup power. The older fire stations, I worked at Fire Station 27 in Hollywood for 9 years. It was built in the 90s, and we didn't have a backup generator. We had what I just talked about, where we fire up a generator once a month and make sure it works. Plug it in. Okay. The other two things I'm going to say real quick about the generator is make sure you fire it up every year, start it, run it, plug stuff into it, change the fuel if you can, or run the fuel out of it because our fuel goes bad. And if you do have a generator, you're going to be the only one with power, so you should probably lock up your generator. Right? Because someone's going to want it. And people are not nice when it comes to disasters.
So you have a propane tank to run your generator.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you keep your propane tank?
So for me, on the side of my shed at home, I have like maybe 6 all the time full propane tanks, but I may be a little bit too much. But I have them for my barbecue or the generator if I need it. But I mean, really, it's like in your garage. Do you want to store 5 gallons, 25 gallons of gas in gas cans, or would you rather just have the propane tanks? It's kind of up to you. Outside is preferred. Because if, let's say you have a garage, sometimes we'll go on a garage fire and we'll go in with a hose line and boom, things explode. Because it's a propane tank that got hot enough and now it exploded. And your light flashes in front of your eyes and it's not fun. But I would keep them outside. If you have.
Because you are referring to retrofitted emergency generators, not ones that have been built with the house.
Right. Yes, you can have, yeah.
Mobile units.
Right. There's companies that, I mean, shoot, all of our phones heard us talk about this now, so your feed is probably going to have all the companies that sell the backup generators come up. Generac. All of a sudden, Generac's going to come up on everybody's phone. But yeah, they're all out in the market. They'll come out, they'll install it, they'll hook it up to your gas line, they'll have a diesel tank on there, all that stuff.
Obviously, since we're talking about retrofitting or retro, or in the house, the sheer fact that we're talking about an emergency generator, not a main generator, means that you're only going to use it occasionally, once in a blue moon, and you're only going to have much needed, the utmost needed, let's say, things plugged up. You can't really have the entire
Absolutely,
plug,
right? Depending on the size of generator you get, the more stuff you can plug in. So, and then, you may have to run extension cords. If you just bought a generator, you're not going to put a generator in the house. Please don't do that. So you're going to have to run extension cords inside, right? So there's a lot of different things to think about. So like Kurt was saying, is one thing that we push a lot. You just have to consider things that can happen and think, okay, yeah, Randy said to have a backup generator. Okay, I got one. But think about now, what does it take? Well, it takes maybe extension cords, it takes fuel, it takes oil, it takes starting it up every 6 months or so to make sure that the carburetor doesn't get clogged. So it's just thinking things through. You got to think things through. But anyway, like I said, I'll be here afterwards. We'll talk about that. But let's get through this. Let's get through this part real quick. It's the fire part. We'll talk about fire extinguishers real quick, and then we'll go practice with a fire extinguisher, and then we'll be done. And if anyone has any questions for us, we'll stay a little bit. I'm going to Lancaster, so it doesn't matter. It's going to be 3 hours no matter what. So first of all, for starters, luckily I had one of these because the pin is out of this. Is that good?
No.
It's not good, huh? Well, luckily it would go right down on the table. So, one thing about a fire extinguisher, I probably didn't get my glasses on, would be do this. One thing about a fire extinguisher is, oh yeah, it's this one. Is it has this pin in it, right? And that pin is preventing the trigger from getting pulled. So they put this twist tie in there, and this twist tie keeps the pin from coming out inadvertently. So somehow this one didn't have a twist tie, but now it does. So I'm gonna put it back. It was over there. Okay. So let's talk about fire extinguishers real quick, and then we'll get to try it. And then yeah. Oh, you didn't know it was yours, huh? I just real subtly said that I was going to put it back over there. That's okay. You know what? Because it's still in the green, so it's still good, and there's no white powder, so it hasn't been used. Okay. So real quickly on fire extinguishers. Okay, we'll talk about 3 different reasons to use a fire extinguisher. Okay, so one is the most obvious. What's the most obvious? Why are we going to use a fire extinguisher? To put out a fire, right? Okay, what kind of fire? What kind of fire do you think we put out with? Kitchen? Like a fully involved kitchen?
No.
Just a stove. Okay. How about the size of a chair or a trash can?
Yes.
How about that? Okay, so this is approximately good enough for about a chair or a trash can. Not a lot. Not very big, right? So how long do we think this thing will shoot for?
20 seconds.
Yeah, that's close. That's actually pretty good. Anyone want the speed time? 22. So 12 to 20 seconds. 12 to 20 seconds, depending on the extinguisher size and all that stuff, and how well you maintain it. We'll talk about that in a minute. So 12 to 20 seconds. That's not very long, right? It's not going to put out a whole lot of fire. How far do you think you have to get back?
4 feet.
Ooh, that's cool. You're daring. You're daring. Okay. Once again, I don't have my glasses on.
10 feet?
But they'll either say, because you have them on, right?
Yes.
Because you know how many people tell me, oh, let me see, I can see, I don't need glasses. Most of them will say 8 or 10 feet. They'll say it right on it. Okay, so it's either an 8 to 10 foot if it's a dry chem like this. So 8 to 10 feet away, 10 to 20 seconds. And that's it. That's all you're going to get out of it. When you use it, you want to push it down all the way. Oh, we'll talk about how to use it when we try it and all that stuff. So it's a small fire. So a house like this, I would probably have 3 or 4 of these.
We have 10.
Yeah.
You're right. The different sections.
Overachiever.
Yeah, you want to close at hand.
I'll be honest, I would have 10 too. I just didn't want to say 10 because maybe they didn't have 10. I don't want to make you feel bad.
We already feel bad.
I won't even charge you for this, don't worry.
There are different types of fluids, different types
Yes.
of fire extinguishers. There are certain extinguishers that cannot put out electrical fires, right?
Yeah. And we'll get into that. We're going to get into that right here. So we're talking about putting out a small fire. Okay? So what kind of fires will this put out? Grease fire? Yes.
Candle fire.
Candle fire? What else? How about electrical?
Probably not.
Okay. What is an electrical fire? Is it, obviously it's caused by electricity, right? But is it wires on fire and that's it? It's usually other stuff around it that catches fire from the wires that spark, right? So would we call that ordinary combustibles?
Like curtains or something.
Curtains, candles, anything that makes an ash. Ordinary combustibles. So any of the stuff in here, the couches and stuff that would burn, paper, trash, ordinary combustibles. Okay, that's class A fire. Like it makes ash, A for ash. Okay. A grease fire, grease is a flammable liquid. So is propane. So is gasoline. So is lighter fluid. Any flammable thing that you could put in a barrel or a bottle. So what class do we think that is?
B.
B. So class B fire is anything we can put in a barrel or bottle that's flammable. Okay? So C is anything charged or has a current. So that's electrical. So this happens to be a type
A, B, and C.
extinguisher. Okay? Meaning things that are not good with water are okay with this. So what does water do to electrical? Very good. What does water do to grease? Flash, right? Are you in movies? You should be. If you're not, you should be.
Alien movies.
So I should have said that. So water's not good on B and C fires, right? But this is. So this is a dry chemical powder in here. It is a sodium bicarbonate. It's a dry chemical extinguisher, but it's called A, B, C because it can put out fires that make ash, that you put in a bottle that are flammable, and that are have a current or a charge. So A, B, C is for that. Okay? That is this type of extinguisher. This is the most common type of extinguisher you're going to find. This is the one that you should buy if you're going to go buy one. You should have one at minimum in your house. Unless it's this size, you should have 10. You can put one in your car. Okay? Yes?
Do they expire? You have to...
They do not expire. So, theoretically, if it's in the green, it's good. Okay? It can stay in the green for 25 years. I've seen them that old. Because some of them had manufactured dates on them. But they won't have expiration dates on it. Okay? Every year, 6 months to a year, or maybe when the time changes, or every 6 months, you should take it, you should turn it upside down, you should shake it, you should hit it either with your hand or a rubber mallet, okay? And do this, because in here is sodium bicarbonate, like baking soda. So imagine this is a pickup tube that goes down there, okay? They fill it with sodium bicarbonate, however much, I don't know however much is in there, okay? And then they fill it with air. So when you press down on this lever, that is now getting the air to push out all the baking soda up the pickup tube and out this hose. So the longer this sits like this and never gets moved around or anything like that, because we're all intimidated by them, right? Then the more that sodium bicarbonate cakes up. And now instead of, let's say it was that much, now there's only that much that's usable because some of it caked up. So we want to, like, you know, shake it up every now and then. I already did it. You guys are good for a year. But you got 9 more to do.
But we actually do this every year, she said.
Pretty much.
You know why? Because she took a cert class.
That's right.
I was waiting for that question. She asked about the blankets. We've all seen those come up on our feed. The firefighters close like that, and they throw the blanket on. How many of us have one of those? Okay. Those are good, but they're a tool. Okay, they're not always the right tool. This is going to put out a small fire. It's going to put it out for sure. Here's the thing about the blanket. Okay, you actually have to smother it. Okay, so fire has 3 elements. It has fuel, heat, and oxygen. Right? You've got to get rid of one of those to have no fire. So the fire extinguisher is smothering the fire. You're taking away the oxygen. You take away oxygen, you can't have a fire. You feed it oxygen, you have more fire. Take it away, you have no fire. Yeah.
I have a question, because when the fires were happening, one of the things we suggested that you buy is those blankets for kids that were outside. And so nobody was here. Would those have helped protect? No, they wouldn't. Okay.
Those aren't protectors. Those are to smother the fire when it's active. So they may have been saying something about to cover like dry vegetation, but I don't know about anything like that.
This was actually just like
it may be out there.
Furniture that
Oh,
Most
yeah,
of the time,
no.
the blankets are one-time use.
Okay.
Yeah, and so all that's gonna do is you're gonna throw it over the fire, it's gonna smother it. Just like when you stop, drop, and roll, and you roll, you're smothering the fire on you. Okay? So they could be great. If you have a small fire, you get that thing out and you can walk up to it and throw it on it. It's gonna work good. But some houses have a little bit of grease on the back wall behind the stove. Okay? That grease is gonna catch on fire. That blanket is not gonna smother that. So there's certain instances where that blanket will work. There are certain instances where you can't even get close enough. And it may not work. So this, you can get 8 feet away, and that'll be the most effective version of this fire extinguisher. But if you're 15 feet away, you're still gonna do some damage. You're still gonna be able to put the fire out, or at least get it to where now you can go put a blanket on it, or now someone can come in and get closer with another extinguisher. Or you started far away, and now you come in closer and finish. Okay? So this is gonna be your best, but those blankets will work. They are a tool. So I'm not saying you'll not get those, but I'm saying that it doesn't replace this. Okay? So you guys almost did get it. Oh, go ahead.
Is it correct they're not really effective outside because there's so much oxygen, so they don't really smother?
No, they're just good outside.
Okay.
Yeah, because they'll smother.
Good.
So
8 to 10 feet.
from 8 to 10 feet, yeah. So all right. So where are we at? So the last question was that was answering was about the expiration, right? So every 5 years they have to hydrostatically test these in the city. So that means that they drain it, they put they test it with water under pressure, they fill it back up, and they make sure it's good to go again. So with that being said, the city, who wants everybody's money, is saying that every 6 years it should be retested, and that costs a lot of money. But I'm saying at about 8 to 10 years of an extinguisher life, you might want to think about, well, let's get a new one and keep it as a backup. And then you have 11, or then you have 20.
Or you donate one.
Or you don't have one. Yeah, you can sell the old one. So, that's kind of up to you. But technically, if it's still in the green and every year you're doing this, it could last you 20 years, maybe longer, and it'll still work. I've used one that was, like I said, it was 25 years old, and it still worked.
But you were shaking it.
But I was not shaking it. It wasn't mine. I happened to come across it. Somebody brought it to one of our classes. We also do this class with live fire, where we bring like a fire pan and we light up a propane. We take a propane bottle and we light a fire, and you actually use these fire extinguishers.
And we said you're not doing that.
Yeah. Being in Brentwood, we were like, yeah, that's not a good idea. So that's why we brought the $15,000 electronic version of that. So okay, so where are we at? So we talked about the fire extinguisher. We talked about the maintenance on it. We talked about the longevity of it. How about when you use it? What do you do with it?
Don't you ever see scissors to clip off that?
No, you just got to pull it. Just twist it. It's a twist tie, so you just twist it and it'll break. The first person is going to get to break it. The first person who uses my little fire extinguisher is going to get to break it. So what we do with it is it's a hazardous material because it's a pressurized air cylinder. So this contents in here is not hazardous, but since it's a pressurized air cylinder, we can't throw it in the trash, we can't throw it in the landfill, so we'll take it to a place that takes hazardous materials. So you dial 311, or you look up online where you can take hazardous materials. There's always sites everywhere. Or the landfill, sometimes once a week or once a month, they have, like, you can bring them and stuff like that. Or you can bring them to Santa Monica Fire Station, or Newport Beach Fire. You can bring them there. People always say, can we bring it to a fire station? Not my fire station. What am I gonna do with it? So, okay, so that's that. Anyone have any questions so far on the extinguisher?
Any idea? Go for it, Melissa.
I thought we could reload them, no?
You can get it recharged. This one can be recharged because it's metal. It's a commercial style, a commercial one, so it can be recharged. But it's usually cheaper to buy another one because they're going to charge you the same price. And these metal ones are better though than like when you buy at Costco because they have a failure rate. All extinguishers have a failure rate, and these commercial ones are less than the fail rate. They say 1 in 10, but I don't believe stats. So
Where do you get those commercial ones? Where'd you guys get them? I can't remember where we got them.
Fire extinguishers are
But you know, it might have been SOS.
it could have been.
It might have been.
You can get it like at a U-line or like an industrial place.
And how much does like one of those cost?
These commercial ones, I haven't looked lately. Do you guys know? They're at least $50, I think, for a commercial one.
50 to 70.
Yeah, for a commercial. Someone can find it real quick. I mean, shoot, it's gonna pop up on all our phones.
Yeah.
You know, so you'll be able to buy one later.
Certain hardware stores.
But you can get one at Costco. That's a plastic handle one for a lot less than that.
I don't think they sell the plastic handle ones anymore because they had a huge recall.
Right.
Of that, and they replaced them
Yeah,
all
the
with
ones at
metal.
Costco now are metal.
The ones at Costco are metal?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Well, I haven't seen that. I did see the last time I did one of these though, somebody brought a hairspray type extinguisher. Looks like hairspray, and it did not work. So they sell it like it works, like it looks like hairspray, but it's supposed to go. It's supposed to be this high-tech extinguisher. Don't believe it.
How about those little cylinder ones?
That was the next thing I was gonna say. Somebody brought one of those. It looks like a flare, like a road flare. And you pull it out and it sprayed out, but it was not enough. It was nowhere near what this did.
How many pounds is that?
This one is 5 pounds. Yeah, so there's 5 pounds, there's 10 pounds, 20 pounds.
75 Buckaroos from ABC, from England.
There you go. 75, is that what he said? So, and that's the metal handles. So you might be able to still find plastic ones, even though, like you said, they're not, like you said, they're not as good anymore.
They suck.
Yeah, but we have used those too. These are way better.
Well, let's spray one. What do you want to spray?
Okay, so all right, real quick, I'm going to talk about the other two reasons, and then we'll get over with this because I've been talking way too long. So the second one is, okay, if this is upstairs, you have a fire below you. You have 2 ways to get out: run through the fire or jump out the window. Right?
How high is the window?
How high is the window? That's a good question. So I don't know. I'm just saying those are the two things you have to think about, right? So do you have a ladder, an escape ladder? Okay? Or you can't run through the fire like the movies, but you can use this like a heat shield. You can spray this for 20 seconds and run behind it in like thick smoke. If it's flames, it's not a good day. But you can use it for that. So that's the second thing that these can be used for. The third thing. Anybody? What? No, the third thing to use this for.
I was going to say, whack that guy.
Good, very good. That is the third thing. So self-defense, right? So we've all heard about the active shooter situations, and we've all heard about what's that? Those 3 buzzwords that they teach for active shooter. You know, there's always 3 buzzwords, right? Stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah. Hide.
Drop, cover, hold. What is it for active shooter? They're teaching our kids. We should know.
Hide, run.
Run, hide, fight. There you go. The youngest guy, like the youngest guy always gets. So
Run,
hide, fight. And not necessarily in that order, but you know, that's kind of what they say, run, hide, fight. So run away, if you can run away. Hide if you can't run. And then if you can't do either, you might have to fight. So I'm not going to get into run, hide, fight training because that's what the law enforcement does. But let's think about for a second, because I have a 14-year-old and he's trained sort of by me in this. And some of you may have kids, grandkids, loved ones. Okay, let's think for a second if we're in a classroom, okay, and there's a shooter in the hallway, because this happens. Unfortunately, we have to talk about this, but it happens, right? So you don't have a gun, right? I don't think so. Your kid, my 14-year-old doesn't have a gun. I don't think his teacher does. So how are we going to protect ourselves?
Barricade.
Lock the door, barricade, throw all this stuff against the door, all that stuff. That may work. We hope it works. But what my son's going to do, what I've taught him to do, is pull the extinguisher out in his classroom and stand. How many feet?
8 to
10. 8 to 10 is a good range to put out a fire. But let's say he was 15 feet. Still going to be a nice big cloud. Okay? It's not fight like, okay, let's get this and try to fight somebody with a gun. It's like open this thing up and spray somebody that's coming in that door. Okay? Because has anyone ever seen one of these sprayed?
Yes.
So what it is it's an irritant. Okay? It is nasty. It smells. It makes you choke. If you have asthma, you're going to choke. Like if you have asthma, you're going to have an attack. Like it's bad. So it's going to either be like, oh, I'm out of here, I'm going somewhere else, or it's going to be so bad where somebody's going to have enough cojones to use this and beat them up with it. Because you're going to be incapacitated. I promise you, if you get somebody with this, they're not going to be able to do what they were trying to do. So that's always the third part of my fire safety, just because I think that should be shared with people.
That's how you stop them from firing their gun.
So first you spray them and then you throw that at them.
No, don't throw it. Unless you give it to the pitcher on the baseball team and say, here, throw it at him, or the quarterback, right? No, well, yeah, you could, but I would personally.
You can throw it after you spray.
That's
Yeah.
Well, what if you miss?
I say, wait a minute, just take that bad boy.
We're still on set. We're still filming. All right. Does anyone have any questions?
No.
Okay, good. Let's try this. Let's put out a fire with this. We pull the pin, aim the nozzle at the base of the fire, not the pretty flames. The base of the fire from one side. We're going to squeeze all the way, and we're going to sweep across the fire. Okay? Before we pull, we have to twist. And it's actually usually on your left side. And I made this one right-handed, even though all extinguishers are left-handed.
No, it's not gonna be working.
So, once we twist that, the first person who gets to do this, I want them to twist it. I want everyone to see how easy it was to just twist it, break it, and then pull the pin. Then after that, you guys can have the pin in or out. It doesn't matter. Whatever makes you feel happy. The only thing about it is grab the pin, pull the trigger, and actually aim and squeeze, and that's going to make you feel more comfortable with a fire extinguisher. Okay? If you go up there and you go really fast like this, it's not going to, the fire won't go out. That fire is somewhat realistic to where you have to aim at the base and you have to sweep slow, otherwise that fire won't go out. And it's going to tell you the time you got. It's kind of cool, everybody. It's going to say you got a faster time. Preparedness guide, like a little guidebook. It's something that CSUN developed with one of our old captains who's now a chief. This is why he's a chief, because he made this book. But there is somewhere in here, there's a place that you can download the PDF version to have on your phone at all times, which is probably better because we all know we have our phones on at all times, right? And we might not have this book. But this book has a lot of information on disaster preparedness. And then the other thing that I have here that I didn't hand out to everyone because you might not all be interested, but I do have more if you are. This is just a pamphlet on our unit. Okay, our website's on the front. If you want to sign up for a class, like a 17.5-hour class, all of our public classes are on this website. You go on the website and you click on the top, it'll say find a class, and it takes you to our Eventbrite. So that's what this pamphlet is. It kind of explains, it doesn't explain what we're, that thing that we're doing today. It explains the 17.5-hour course. So if you guys are wondering, you can come up here and grab one of those.
And it's free.
And it is free, yes, thank you. It is free. It is free. All right. So.